All right, let's dive into a topic that has exploded from a tiny corner of the internet to the very center of the American financial world, Bitcoin. So what is it about this one digital currency that has so completely captured the imagination of the United States?
It's a real puzzle, isn't it? How did this purely digital thing, with no boss and no headquarters, become a household name? How did it become an obsession for investors and a constant headline on the news? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
And to get a sense of just how big this is, look at this number. A full one-third of all investors in the US now have some kind of exposure to crypto. Yeah, a third. This is not a niche hobby anymore. It's a major force in the American economy.
So here's the secret. The reason Bitcoin is so popular in America isn't just one thing. It's actually a perfect storm, a powerful mix of three ideas: the chance for incredible wealth, a deep connection to the idea of freedom, and a perfect fit with our modern culture. We're going to unpack all three.
First up, let's follow the money. For a lot of people, the biggest draw is Bitcoin's role as a financial asset. You'll often hear it called digital gold.
So, what does digital gold even mean? Well, if you're worried about inflation eating away at your savings, it all boils down to one word: scarcity. You know, there's only so much gold in the world. In the same way, Bitcoin has a hard, unbreakable limit of 21 million coins. That's it. This idea of predictable, digital scarcity is really the core of its value as an investment.
And wow, this slide just lays it out so clearly. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Ever. Now compare that to the US dollar, where the Federal Reserve can essentially create more whenever it wants. This single difference is the entire argument for why some people believe Bitcoin is a better way to store your wealth for the long haul.
And of course, you can't talk about Bitcoin without talking about its wild history. The returns have been absolutely astronomical at times, which created this huge wave of interest from people hoping to get in on the action. And you know, this isn't just for everyday investors anymore. The big players on Wall Street are now treating it as a legitimate new asset class, which really cements its place in the financial world.
But the story is so much bigger than just money. This second part is about philosophy. It taps right into a core American value: independence. The big promise here is something called financial autonomy. It's the idea that you can hold and send your money without needing permission from a bank or any other company. For anyone who's a little skeptical of big institutions, this idea of having total control over your own wealth, well, that's incredibly appealing. And this right here shows you just how radical of an idea that is. There's no CEO to answer to, no central bank pulling the strings, no middleman. It just runs on a network of equals. It's a fundamental challenge to the way our financial system has always worked.
So how is that even possible? It's all thanks to the technology called the blockchain. The easiest way to think about it is like a global public receipt book that anyone can look at, but nobody can change. Every transaction is out there in the open, and it's locked down by some seriously powerful cryptography that has, to this day, never been broken. In a world full of data breaches, that kind of security is a huge deal.
Okay, so we've got the financial hook and the philosophical one. But how did this idea actually catch on and become a cultural force? That brings us to our third and final piece of the puzzle: its journey into the American mainstream.
Bitcoin's rise was just fueled by this perfect mix of cultural trends. You had Silicon Valley, which loves anything that disrupts the old way of doing things. The crazy price swings meant the media couldn't stop talking about it. Then you throw in endorsements from famous celebrities and billionaires, and finally you get US regulators calling it a commodity, and bam, you've got a recipe for a mainstream obsession.
And the data shows us that a very specific group was leading this charge. This demographic, guys who are already comfortable with tech and spend a lot of time on platforms like YouTube and Twitter, they found this huge online community. It became this self-feeding cycle of learning and adopting that just pushed Bitcoin further and further into the spotlight. So when you put all these pieces together, the money, the philosophy, the culture, you start to see what Bitcoin really is in the United States today.
When you get right down to it, Bitcoin's fame in America comes from the fact that it's not just one thing. For some, it's a high-risk investment. For others, it's a political statement against the system. And for millions of others, it's a cultural symbol of a new digital frontier. It's the meeting point of these three powerful stories that makes it so uniquely American. Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. Is Bitcoin just another asset like stocks or gold that you buy and sell, or does it actually represent something deeper? A modern, digital version of the American dream, a new path to wealth and freedom outside the old system. That's the real question at the heart of this whole obsession. Thanks for tuning in.